Aaron Sharp, and Walker Kessler all impacted the game in a positive manner. I've been asking for that really since when you had the trifecta with it just being Brooks, Bacot, and Sharp, and now you've added Kessler. Bacot put another good performance on back-to-back nights from Syracuse for 18 and 15. Tonight, 18 points on 6 of 10 shooting, 6 of 7 from the foul line, 6 rebounds. He simply got the ball and drove it right into Matthew Hurt, into Mark Williams' bodies, moved them out of the way, and got easy buckets.
He made a lot of tough shots tonight, too. And, I mean, we know that that's just the way that Armando is. But there were a couple of times where he was in some awkward positions and still made something out of nothing. Yeah, he was great.
And Garrison Brooks, 14 points, 6 of 9 from shooting. Off-balanced, one-legged three-pointer to beat the shot clock.
That's probably my favorite shot of his entire career.
Then he hit another three in the second half where it felt like Carolina was up 21, and then he pushed the lead to 24. But he came out, and another typical senior that was about to have all the emotions running through his body that played really well.
Also admitted in the press conference that the second three that he took from the top of the key there, that was a heat check, and it didn't go all that well.
And when you're up as much as Carolina was up, you're going to live with that
It's okay, yeah.
Then you go to the bench, Aaron Sharp, 7 points. Not a great night from the field, but he had 5 rebounds everywhere defensively. Walker Kessler, 4 points, 4 rebounds, a putback dunk over Matthew Hurt. Then you get to the probably the most emotional part of the entire game, which was the final minute. The game's out of hand. You get a chance to put in your seniors for one final time. Sterling Manley isn't a senior, but he also has been on the basketball court in over 2 years. And the man was able to get into the court for the first time all year long. They get the ball to him for a thunderous dunk. On the other end, he goes back down and swats a ball into the stands.
And apparently, destroyed one of the cardboard cutouts when he did that.
The best part about all of that, and I put a tweet up on Twitter that is still blowing up as we're sitting here recording, that sequence happened, and they pan to the bench, and you see Garrison Brooks, a guy they came to the program at the same time. Garrison Brooks simultaneously cheering and crying. When we talk about the Carolina basketball family, when we talk about what makes Carolina basketball so special, that sequence kind of brings that to life. It's not some made-up fantasy like Duke's wannabe brotherhood. The family aspect of it is real, and you saw that tonight. And closing about the way our bigs played.
Well, can I say something about Sterling first? I thought that, they didn't put him in as one of the selections, but I thought that one of the guys that should have been up there for the Warner Ladder Player of the Game for Learfield IMG Tar Heels coverage, I thought should have been Sterling Manley, because that sequence was amazing. That's my player of the game from this game, because nobody thought that would happen. I said it when he first walked over to the table. It didn't even look like it looked like he may have been limping a little bit walking over to the table. This dude has been through so much. When we were talking about him on the preseason pod, I don't know if we actually said it on the podcast, but in our minds when we were doing prep for it and talking, we said right out, we don't know if Sterling Manley will ever play the game of basketball ever again. Because when you've had these stories of guys that just haven't played in this long, no matter what the sport is, you usually do not see those guys come back.
Yeah.
That's usually, it's an injury that's not healing right, and that's usually the end of their career leading to a medical retirement, and you just feel horrible for the players. But for him to get out there and throw that jam down and then send that ball into the stands, unfortunately, probably sending a Tar Heel fan home with no head for their cardboard cutout when they get it back. Hopefully that wasn't one of the ones that was supposed to be signed by Roy Williams or the coaching staff. It's great to see. And you mentioned it, the bench, which, by the way, was electric all night. But that was really special because that looked like a bench that had just won a national championship. for Sterling Manley being able to get in there. And just, I mean, what a fantastic story for him. You know, he's a guy that, look, I really hope that he does that he is back with Carolina. I hope that he can get back on the basketball court. But if for some reason that injury is still just not healing right and he has to retire for some reason, what a way for him to go out.
That would always have that moment, that sequence.
That would just be fantastic.
Against Duke.
And you know it's emotional for Garrison because him and Garrison came in the same class. And you said it on this podcast. You've said it multiple times when we talked about Sterling. There was legitimate thought that he was going to be the best big out of that class when he first got there. And, with everything that happened, it was great, of course, to see Garrison become the player that he became. But it was just heartbreaking to see what happened to Sterling. So, yeah, this is just a great, a great moment for him. And we're hoping that the legacy of Sterling Manley is only just starting to be written.
In closing, talking about Carolina's post players, tonight's another reason why they need to play the way they want to play.
You're gonna bring this up every time they have a great night in the post.
Well, because it just reminds you that, look, this team, even though they're not built to beat you from the perimeter, and look, maybe in a year or two they're back to being a more perimeter oriented team. This team can beat top level teams in the ACC playing the way they want to play. When their bigs play with that kind of energy, that kind of effort, and that level of toughness around the rim, they can play with any team in the country playing inside-out basketball.
My thing about that mindset of you just can't win that way is, when do you remember a team that won a national championship that pretty much all they did was shoot threes? Like in the NBA, that's become the game. If you are not a team that can beat somebody from the perimeter, you aren't going to do anything in the NBA. But that's not the way that college basketball has always been, even recently. Like, look, you've had some teams that have had success, but I mean, look back. Who's the most exciting player that has come through college basketball in a while? It's the most, in my opinion, one of the more overrated players as well in Zion Williamson. But he's a post player. Like, there is a reason why post play is still at the level that it is. Look at the guy that right now is probably, I mean, he may be the front runner. I mean, again, I haven't been as in touch with college basketball as I've probably been in past years. But Luka Garza is was considered heading into the year the landslide favorite to win Player of the Year. I don't know if people realize Luka Garza is a 7-foot center that plays for Iowa. Like, post players are still a really big part of why you're able to have success at the college level. The biggest problem for Carolina is not the fact that they run their offense through the post, that they run their offense with second chance points leading the way at times. Their biggest problem is when you turn the ball over as much as they do, you eliminate those second chance points. You eliminate those post touches. You can have success running it through the post. You just have to, be able to take care of the basketball.
Yeah. And tonight, the guards did a really good job as well. Caleb Love has starting to get the moniker as a Duke killer, 18 points, 6 of 12 shooting, 7 more assists. Kerwin Walton, 18 points, 4 of 7 from behind the three-point line in the 2 games against Duke. 8 of 11 from 3. He ties Raymond Felton with 8 made three-pointers, the most by a Carolina freshman against Duke. And he's now finished out the regular season shooting 42% from behind the three-point line, which would be the best of any freshman under Roy Williams since he came back to Chapel Hill. And so I think the guards, they've shown also in these games where it's just maybe there's not the talent on the floor that Duke usually has because Duke's backcourt's very young. They're not going to play in a more intensified game the rest of the season, no matter what they see in the ACC tournament or the NCAA tournament. Nothing will match what they've seen in these 2 games against Duke. And Caleb Love,
unless they play him again. If they run into him again.
And Kerwin Walton and our young guys have shown the ability to rise to the occasion. They turned the ball over 20 times tonight. That's a lot. But you also got the game into an 80 to 90 possessions. And I've said all year long, I don't care if Carolina turns the ball over if they play fast. But when you're playing 65, 70 possessions, you can't turn the ball over 17, 18, 19 times. Tonight, the tempo was there. They were pushing the ball as well as they have all year long. So those turnovers, albeit they committed some dumb ones, especially against Duke's little BS full court press, like Carolina just dumbly put the ball in the corner instead of trying to actively break it.
That was 2 turnovers within like 15 seconds. So, yeah.
I'm not. Roy Williams will be mad about that number, and the Tar Heel fans that want to grab a complaint about any little thing. Look, they turned the ball over 20 times, and yet Duke scored 23 points off those turnovers. When you play at the amount of possessions Carolina got to, which they took 56 shots from the field. They were fouled 26 times, 20 turnovers. You do the math, you're looking at roughly 90 or so possessions. That it negates itself. It balances itself out, and they also forced 15 turnovers from Duke. And went and got 16 points off of their turnovers as well. So, and another thing that stood out in this game, a lot like in some of their other big wins, they shot well from the foul line. 21 of 26 from the foul line after shooting just 14 of 22 on Monday night, 81%. Duke couldn't even really consider trying to make it, trying to extend the game by putting Carolina at the foul line because they were making the most of their freebies. So, it's another reason why we haven't lost faith in this team, because when you want to lose faith, they do this. And I've said all year long, Roy Williams has been able to get this team to respond after bad losses. And Monday's loss at Syracuse was a bad loss in terms of the way that Carolina played. Syracuse isn't a bad team, but the way Carolina played was bad. Now the challenge is going to be you've got about 96 hours before you take the court again, not crap in the bed in the ACC tournament, because now that you're solidly in the field and all that's great, but here's a chance to build off of this win over Duke and really gain some momentum as you head into the NCAA tournament. But
I wanted to say something about the turnovers, because I'm not going to lie, I'm probably in a similar boat to Roy here. I wouldn't say I'm angry about the amount of turnovers. This is part of the reason why I'm hesitant on them being able to make a deep run in either the ACC tournament or the NCAA tournament. Because 20 turnovers, that's just a ton. And that's the problem. What did they shoot from the field tonight?
55%.
My thing is, how many times are you going to be able to consistently shoot even over 50% from the field? I know you're going to, you're hoping you continue to get a lot of high percentage looks, everything like that. You're hoping you can continue to play the way that you played tonight. But that's really hard to keep duplicating that game with that level of effort over and over again. And mainly, part of it is that, look, you're going to run into better defensive teams than Duke. Duke is not a very good defensive team. We've learned that here, at least against us. Apparently they've been better in some of the other games this year. But against Carolina, they have not looked good. Both games they allow over 90. So, and Carolina, a lot of that is because Carolina played really, really well. But I think the other part of that is that Duke isn't the greatest defensive team. So that's my concern with the turnovers, is that if you turn the ball over that much, that's fine. You better have a phenomenal night from the field, or you could put yourself in a little bit of trouble. Now, the other part of it is, like you mentioned, they turned them over 15 times. So that's part of it. If you're going to turn the ball over a lot, you've got to force a lot of turnovers as well to be able to keep up with a team that's turning you over a lot. So that's the one area where, in this game, you still have a little bit of pause. But again, this is another game that you look at and you say, man, Carolina, the way they played tonight on the offensive and defensive end outside of those turnovers, this looks like a team that can make a run in the ACC and NCAA tournaments. And I think that's the most frustrating part about this team, is that every time that you want to go in one direction with them, they come out the next game and do something to steer you back in the other direction, whether that's, whatever it is. The other thing is that this is another Saturday game where they were just great. Can we have a petition to only play on Saturdays the rest of the season?
At home.